Hey everybody, this is Jose Blasco. We are about to get started. Let's have a quick sound check if that's okay. Quick message on the chat box as we always do. That would be how I know that you hear me well. So please go ahead and give me a quick sound check. Thank you so much. Quick message on the chat box. Okay, so I'm still checking the sound. Sorry for that, guys. We are about to get started right now. I just need to make sure all is good to go. Thank you for those confirmations, guys. Thank you very much. That's it. We are ready to get started. So I'm just turning on the video stream here on the bottom right side of the corner as always, so I can say hi. And today is October 24, 2021. My name is Jose Blasco, and this is the top session that we normally run on the Sundays. So welcome to the session, everybody. Disclaimer on the upper left side of the screen. Before we get started, please read it carefully. This is important information. And as the disclaimer is being highlighted, we're going to talk about the agenda for today, which the agenda, it's obviously talk about top. We'll talk about the platform. Many times when we talk about the use of the platform, we cannot separate the use of the software with talking about trading, and therefore we'll have either lectures on trading, lectures on the platform, sometimes a combination of both, sometimes more intense on the software, sometimes more intense on the lectures about trading. And also for sure open and ready to receive your questions so we can talk about it and help you guys to master what you do in trading. How are you, Gary? It's good to see you, my friend. Mark, J-Lo, everybody, welcome to the session. It's time to get started. So let's begin. Good. Well, this is the top help menu, which you get when you utilize top. Probably you guys know this well. You go to the help menu, select help, or simply hit F1 on your keyboard. And the moment you do that, this is bringing you to this particular web page, which is where we have our user guide, our help menu, which is structured using this menu on the left and has multiple sections that, little by little, we're going to be discovering together and going deeper into every one of those uses, okay? In the past sessions that we have been running, when we talked about the use of the platform, we've been talking about using the pages, okay? This is one of the very basic lessons that we covered in the past, which was important, but not too joyful, if you wish. It was a bit boring, but definitely important. From there, we started talking about the strategy builder, okay, which is a tool that is going to help a lot to save time planning options trades. And if you are new to options or have limited knowledge on options, the strategy builder could help you to just have proper trades placed or planned at the speed of the light, and they are proper. So in that sense, it's a good shortcut. And then last week we got a bit more advanced when we were talking about the option chain, and also we talked surface level. We touched on the probability cone, which we'll have to discuss that more in depth. Okay, so in other words, we've been moving randomly up and down within the menu. I mean, it's not random, obviously, but somehow if someone doesn't understand about trading, they would feel it's random because it's up and down. But the reality is that, the purpose of those lessons that we covered already was beyond teaching you how those tools work. It was also to start preparing you for other tools that we need to discuss within the platform and trading. So today we're going to start, and probably this may take a few sessions. Okay, we're going to start talking about the use of the charts, because there are many tools in the charts which are classical tools that you find in charts in most trading platforms out there. But also there are many tools that are very specific, that they are very proprietary, as well as tools that are in the charts, but they refer to options trading, which that's not common at all in most of the trading platforms when you are dealing with options tools. So you do that in a separate window, for example, an option chain. But guess what? We're going to be able to have a lot of those things as well on the charts themselves. So let's begin a conversation about charts. And as we go deeper into understanding the charts, you will see how we need to have many side conversations so you guys know how to use the tools powerfully. Okay, how are you, Clive? It's good to see you. Very nice, everyone. Okay, so let's begin with understanding charts. Okay, so probably best place where to start is how to load a new chart. Okay, because if you are used to attend the sessions and you see me use the sessions, I got the charts ready to use already on the screen. So they are there. But what if you want to add more charts? What if you start with a brand new page with nothing in it, and you want to create charts, or add more charts that then you may drag to another computer screen or something like that? Well, on the upper left side of the screen, you have a chart button where when the moment you click it, a new chart comes, appears and is ready for you to use. Okay. Now, if you do it on your top and you compare with what I just done, you may notice that your chart may have a dark background. My chart is white background, has the UFOs enabled already. Why is that? Well, we'll talk about it. But something that happens to the charts is that you can create templates, including having a default template, which mine, as you can see, is white background with the UFOs. But you can also go back to load the factory defaults, which we go back to that dark background that most of you using top may have if you have never created your own default template. So we're going to talk about all of that, okay? But bottom line, the first thing you need to know about charts is that you have a chart button, and the moment you click on that, a new chart appears. Hi, Joe. Yeah, I would say connection is good today. The other day, to be honest, I could not find what the reason was. My connection was, at least the moment I tested it, it was just impeccable. So I'm not sure what happened, why the video stream got interrupted. Not sure. But anyway, let's focus on the session today. Fernando, good to see you as well. Yeah, cool. Very nice. Okay, so first thing about charts, we have a chart button. You click on it and a chart appears. Second thing about charts, there are different types of charts available in the platform. Okay, how can you change the charts? Okay, and let me maximize this window so that way we just focus on one chart for now. So how can you change the chart types? You have different ways on how to do it. You can go ahead and right click and select OHLC bars, colored OHLC bars, candlesticks, Heikin Ashi candlesticks, line, area. Those are the type of charts that are available, and you can just switch between one type to another type easily just by clicking here. Now, the other thing you could do as well is here on the left, you have those buttons that represent the 6 type of charts available in the platform. Bars, colored bars, candlesticks, but the Heikin Ashi variation, line charts, or area. Okay, and I am assuming here that you know the differences between those charts. If there is anything you'd like to know, or you have a question about that, feel free to ask and I will explain it. Because really that's not related to the platform, that's just related to type of charts that exist out there. Okay. Now, notice as well that when it comes to charts, okay, and I'm gonna restore down my chart on purpose so you get to focus on this window I'm moving around right now. Notice that the chart I'm using has a toolbar here on the left that you could enable or disable with the hide toolbar by either clicking when the arrow points left, you hide it, or clicking when the arrow points right, you unhide it, and you get to now display and make visible those tools and those buttons. So again, I'm just going to maximize again. Notice how that toolbar is loading here on the left, and you may feel that it's not needed because really the very same buttons you have here are the buttons that are on the side, on the left side of the platform, unless you hide it. Okay, I mean this has to do with the platform. You can also hide the buttons, but I would say probably not a good idea because then you need to use the menus, or you need to hide and hide more often. Unless maybe you're using a computer with limited resolution or something like that, I would say hiding the main toolbar, it's not that useful. Probably none of you do it. But the one with the charts, okay, the high toolbar that is within the charts, you may feel that you want to hide it because, if you have a setup like the one I have right now, where you have just one chart which is maximized, so, what's the point of having that toolbar where you can click rectangle, where you also have the rectangle button here, or you can click on zoom, where you also have the zoom button here. So why would you want that? So you may decide to hide it. Okay. Now, why does it exist then? Well, it exists because you may have multiple charts on your screen. Maybe you floated your charts, or maybe not. And then next thing you know, you have a chart which is located all the way there on the left. Okay. And your main window, okay, that your main top, I'm just gonna move it like that, even though it looks unorganized, but I'm gonna do it on purpose so you understand my point, which is that top here may be located on another computer screen. Okay, it may be located on another computer screen. So now, when you're looking at this other computer screen, okay, you have your chart here, and then now it's very handy to have the toolbar on the left side of your chart, so you don't have, every time you want to do something, for example, draw a rectangle, you don't need to go ahead and move your mouse all the way to that other computer screen. You may have, two monitors on the left, and then go back with your mouse all the way to the chart again to do something. So then, you spend a lot of time dragging the mouse right and left. So then it's very convenient to, instead of hiding that toolbar, you can unhide it, and that way your tools are always at a very reasonable distance from where your mouse cursor is, and you don't have to travel so much right and left across computer screens if you use a setup with multiple screens. So that's why this toolbar is here. Okay, now talking about chart types, which is what I was discussing, notice how the chart types, okay, or all the other options, okay, could be enabled or disabled. For example, if right now I have it disabled, so actually notice how I don't have chart types here. If I right click and enable chart types, guess what? Now here on the top, okay, I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chart types show up here on the top, and now I have those buttons available. So in other words, you could enable or disable, chart types, scale and grid, size and positions, line tool, line toolbar. So all of those things could be enabled and disabled, providing you with the functionality that you need, that you use, and minimizing the amount of buttons on the screen, which is less confusing and also handy if you happen to use computers with less resolution, which I guess it's probably not too common. But it may happen that maybe you're using a borrowed computer, or maybe you are traveling with a laptop that you don't use too often, whatever that is. So again, that's why we have this toolbar here on the left. Okay, cool. So going back to the type of chart that we have again 6 types of charts that you could either right click, select. For example, if I make it OHLC bars, just bars, so it looks like that. Okay. Let me delete the drawing so that way we don't get confused. So this is how it looked like. Notice how the OHLC, meaning the bars, are highlighted. I can switch to the color ones. So if I click that way, so now there is some color. Okay, I'm using blue and gray, so it looks very, very light. Later we'll talk how you can make your bars actually thicker. Okay, and now you can see it better. Actually, I'm doing it already, even though I'll explain it properly later on. Okay, but now those bars are colored, where the other bars were not. Again, normal bars, color bars. Then we got candlesticks, which is what I personally use most of the time. So here are the candlesticks, and also those candlesticks, okay, can be Heikin Ashi style, okay, which again they represent different price points, okay, because the calculation of the candles actually has a formula built in. So there is an kind of like, just to simplify what is Heikin Ashi, it's kind of like an average of price is built in the candle. So instead of seeing the open, the low, the high, and the close per candle, you get to see averages of prices. That's why you can see so much overlapping. Okay, when you see those candles, notice how this one overlaps this one overlaps this one, and so on. So they all overlap each other because the calculations have to do with averages. Okay. Again, you can just Google Heikin Ashi if you don't know how that works. So again, candlesticks and Heikin Ashi. Then you have the classical line, and then you have the classical area. Okay, and while notice how you keep changing chart types. Notice how your UFOs are calculated based on independent price points and price data, and they stay in the same place. So no matter what, you can actually overlay different type of candlesticks to the UFOs. In this case, just a little tip there, and maybe get an extra confirmation. Okay, maybe you're using a Heikin Aishi type of candlestick to get you a confirmation for an entry or an exit because it's based on an average. But then your ultimate entries and exit price points are based on UFOs, which are not based on averages; they are based on field orders. So again, you can do certain combinations on the charts, which could be quite handy. In my case, I'm pretty simplistic there. I just use candlesticks with the tools, in this case the UFOs, and that's it. Okay. So charts, and therefore chart types. What else? Well, symbols and timeframes, it's absolutely critical. Okay, it's absolutely critical. Okay, so depending on the type of trader that you are. So let me switch this to the S&P, for example. So how do I switch to the S&P? I just type the symbol SPY. Let's say I'm trading Apple, so I switch to Apple. So how do I do it with a symbol? I mean, I guess we all know that, right? So two things may happen. You know the symbol, or you don't. Okay. So how do you deal with knowing the symbol? Well, you can just come to this little window that is highlighted on the upper left side of the chart, and you just type the symbol, for example, FB for Facebook, and then you hit enter or click load, and the chart loads. Okay? But at the same time, to be honest, you don't need to move your mouse all the way to here and click and then only then start typing. Actually, you can have your mouse anywhere on the screen, okay, and without even moving the mouse, you can just go straight into a keyboard, and if I type BAC for Bank of America, notice how BAC is now being input in the right window while I didn't move my mouse, and now I hit enter, and now Bank of America is loading. So in other words, you don't need to move your mouse right and left. The platform is kind of designed to be very pragmatic, if you wish, on the use, save you time, save you mouse traveling right and left, and therefore you can just type no matter where your mouse is, as long as you are clicking on the chart. Because of course, if let's say on my screen I have a chart, and on my screen I also have let's say a risk graph, right? And right now I am on the risk graph. So if I type a symbol, for example, Facebook FB, and I hit enter, then nothing's gonna happen. Why? Because I am on the risk graph, and the risk graph, okay, which is a tool where you got many clickable items, right? It's not like a chart, which is something visual for you to observe. So the risk graph is a tool that has a different purpose. So with the risk graph, you do need to travel all the way to the cell where you change the symbol, and then here you would type Facebook, okay? Which leads me, to talk about window linking, right? Notice how the risk graph changed, but the chart didn't. So your windows could be independent or could be linked, meaning that now when you change the symbol in one window, it changes on the other windows too, which we'll talk about that in a moment, okay? But again, the symbol is obviously critical, and because the chart is a tool where you probably spend a decent amount of time doing your market analysis, so the chart is designed for you to observe and not to need to travel. Also, normally a trader uses multiple monitors, multiple charts per monitor. So to minimize mouse traveling and add convenience, you basically just make sure you are in the right window. You want to change the symbol, and wherever you are in the window, it doesn't matter where your mouse is, as long as that window is selected, you just type the symbol and that symbol changes. Now, this is assuming you know the symbol, okay? So what if you don't know the symbol? Well, if you don't know the symbol, then you will want to go for symbol lookup, which is that little magnifying glass, okay? So you click on that, and now here what you could type is, you could type a symbol. Maybe you know the symbol, but you're not sure, so you can do that. Maybe you think, I think Google is JOOG, but I'm not sure, so let's search. And next thing you know, now you can see that actually Google has two symbols. And they are the same company, but different product actually, because one is let's call it for employees and the other is not. even though that's an oversimplification. But again, I don't want to get into that now. But basically, now you type a symbol and you can get a confirmation. Okay. Different story is maybe you don't know the symbol, but you know the name of the company. So maybe you're looking for Pfizer, right? You know the name of the company, Pfizer, very popular these days, obviously, but you don't know the symbol. So what you do, you search, and now it's gonna tell you what the symbol is. Okay, and again, this is gonna help you to be able to find the markets that you want to trade. So again, we're talking about charts today. We have a chart. Important to change the type of charts. We talk about six different types of charts. Second, now we need to change the symbol. So now you know. What else? The time frames. Okay, the time frames. Well, very simple, quite intuitive, I would say. Just like we got a place for symbols, we also have a place for time frames. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of water if you don't mind, guys. Sorry, guys, my throat was a bit itchy, so I had to. By the way, talking about symbols, there is something I missed, which is the platform has memory. So when you click on the drop-down menu, it gives you a list of symbols that you have been using. So instead of typing, if you are a mouse guy, actually, I personally prefer to avoid the use of the mouse as much as I can, but maybe you are the opposite as me and you love mouse. So now you can click on the drop-down menu and select whatever other symbol, and you don't have to type it. You just select. Those are prior symbols that you used before. So with the time frames, I was saying that the process is very similar. You have you have a place there where you can come in here and type things. For example, I can type 60, and if I type 60 and I hit enter or click load, this is going to load a 60-minute time frame. Okay, this is what this is going to do. But also I could use a drop-down menu, and in this case, this is not going to show you the time frames that you have used before. This is going to show you the most common time frames that most people use. Okay, this is what this is going to show you. So you have the daily, the weekly, the monthly, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10, 15, 30, 60. So let's say you are interested in 15, so you could select from the list, okay, and go for 15. Okay, now same idea with the time frames that what we have said earlier when it comes to the chart symbol, which is you don't need to bring your mouse to this particular cell for you to change the time frame. You can just go ahead and your mouse is wherever it is. Nothing is selected. Notice if I click, that would be selected. It becomes blue background in my case based on my color settings. But notice that if I click anywhere in the chart, then it's not highlighted in blue, isn't it? So meaning that I never click there, right? So I am somewhere else in the chart. So what happens if I type 30 and I hit enter? Well, notice how automatically the system detects that this is not a symbol because it starts with a number, and next thing you know, it's gonna put that on the time frame window, and now you are basically changing the time frame without using your mouse. So that's pretty handy. And also it's handy because now you can go ahead and type whatever number you want. If you want to load a 222 time frame, so you type 222, and now this is gonna give you a 222-minute time frame. In this case, of course, it had to load more data, so it took a little bit of time, but that's it. Now you have it. Okay, and if you want to use the 11 time frame, you type 11, and here we go. That's your 11 time frame. You can type any number you want. Okay. What else? Well, you may be wondering, what about the daily time frame? Okay, could I type daily? Okay, well, yes, you could. Okay, you could type daily. Okay, but notice what happens if you type daily. Notice where that word was written. It was written in the symbol side. Why? Because it starts with a letter, so the platforms assume that's a stock symbol, and there is no stock symbol with daily, so it basically would return nothing. You would see that spinning wheel, and nothing would show up on the screen. So how do you use the keyboard to change to daily? Because of course you can certainly go to drop the menu, click on daily, right, and now you have a daily chart, or come here, click on monthly, weekly, now you have a weekly chart, or come here, click on monthly, and now you have a monthly chart. But how can you save mouse traveling and just give the platform an instructor to change to daily without moving your mouse? Well, you can start with a comma on the keyboard, or just a period, okay, comma or period. So if I type comma and then I add the letter D, notice that the letter D is now being input on the time frame, right? And when I click enter, that letter D becomes daily. Okay, could you type daily? Okay, well, you could, right? But again, if this is about saving time, so then the right process could be comma D, okay, or comma W, that loads the weekly, or comma M, that loads the monthly, okay, etc. Okay, and that's how you could do it. You can also use period. If you use period instead of comma, it's same story. If I do period D, so now this is now moving back to the daily time frame. So again, um, the moment you type a number, it's a minute time frame. The moment you type comma or period and then D, W, or M, it will change to daily, weekly, or monthly. Okay. One more thing about time frames, okay, which is the fact that the platform has a hidden, very special type of time frame, which is extremely powerful. Okay, notice how when we look at the daily time frame with IBM, the UFO performance stats shows 43%, which you would think is a bit disappointing. Okay, and the reality is that is what it is. It denotes that many unfilled orders are canceled in this time frame, meaning the market closes and plenty of the orders that were not filled during the day are then canceled. Okay, and therefore then the probability that those UFOs work powerfully, it's 43%. So it's not that amazing. So and why is that? Well, because again, it's a 6.5 hour market. In this case, that we're charting is a stock. If we were to do the same exercise with futures, Forex, cryptocurrencies, markets that trade 23, 24 hours a day, then orders don't get canceled the same way, and you would see a way larger number. Okay, but in this case, it's a stock, and therefore we see that low number. So how can we tweak the timeframes in a very smart manner to try to understand what is truly relevant in the world of stock trading, knowing that it's a market that trades for very few hours a day. The stock market is closed for longer than what is open, and therefore there is always, for all stocks, a great quantity of orders being canceled. It depends on the institutional interest, if you wish. So how can we do that? Well, that's when multi-day timeframes come into place. I didn't say multi-minutes. I said multi-days, okay, multi-days. And yes, Mark, and you're reading my mind, because I was going to mention that as well. Very, very good one there with 1D. And this is the nomenclature, starting with a number, is the nomenclature when you want to use multi-day time frame. So remember, when you start with a number, for example, I'm going to start with 2. So the moment I start with 2, notice how that 2 is now being typed on the time frame. How do we call it? You get my point. That little window, it doesn't come to my mind now. Sorry for that. That little window where you type the numbers, right? So why? We talked about it. The platform detects is a number, so it knows it's a time frame. So that input goes there, right? But then if you follow number 2 by the letter D, which is what we say it's a daily time frame, and you hit enter or click on load, notice what just happened here. This created a 2-day time frame. It just created a 2-day time frame. And what is a 2-day time frame? Is a time frame where 2 days of data have been accumulated, and therefore the plotting of those candles have differences, but also the performance stats of your analytics in this case went from 43 to 45. We can do the same 3-day. Okay, now it's 53%. So notice how by using multi-day timeframes, okay, you are now finding out more about very relevant price points on the chart. That, of course, for traders is extremely relevant information. Okay, most platforms, I would say extremely few platforms, almost none, have multi-day timeframes. They have multi-minutes. Okay, and you can do whatever amount of minutes, but you cannot do days. Okay, and in this case, for stocks, which are markets that don't trade all the time, it's indeed very useful. Okay, so now going back to Mark, well, if 2D, 3D, 10D is gonna give you a 10-day time frame. Okay, so what if I do 1D? Well, if I do 1D, that's a daily time frame. Okay, which is another way to input comma D or period D. Okay, so just giving you choices there. Oh, you got this from Becky. Very good. Good one there, Mark. Okay, so anyway, so little tips there to help you with speed of use of the platform, and mastering what you do, and the time spent using the platform. How is it going, guys? Give me a little bit of feedback. We're halfway into the session. What we're discussing today, it's very basic when it comes to the use of charts, but it's going to make a very big difference in your everyday usage of the platform, because those little tips count a lot. Let me know, guys, even if it's so basic that you have nothing to say, still give me a okay, all good, something like that, so I know you're following. Okay, now what I want to talk about now is the feature of floating and docking. I'll talk about this very quickly because we talked about this when we talked about pages. Okay, but of course charts, okay, have a float button, okay, like everything else in top, so you can float it, right? And the moment you float it, you can do with it whatever you want to do with it, okay? And once it's floated, and of course you can have many floated charts placed in different monitors and different places, then you can dock it, and the moment you dock it, it goes back to inside the main window where it was before you floated it. Okay, the platform has memory. Fernando, Jose, using your method, what do you prefer to improve the percent of UFOs first, increasing the number of days or increasing the time frames by FIB numbers? I prefer to get the calibration first, which we'll do a session on that as well. I prefer to do the calibration first, and then vary the time frames, because the calibration has to do with your trading style and your risk appetite, where the use of multiple timeframes have to do with the institutional interest available, which changes through time. So if you were to change the UFO calibration, you could do it for every stock if you want, but that's going to drive you crazy. You're going to spend so much time every time you want to trade. So I prefer to have a setting which represents my trading style, my risk appetite, and from there, if a stock has plenty of institutional interest, I could use daily timeframes or intraday or whatever has good performance stats. Let's say the stock has little institutional interest in a certain time frame, but then you move to the 3-day time frame, for example, as we saw with IBM, and then you have a good institutional interest and therefore good stats. So then that would be my way to adapt to what the market has to offer, because the thing is that you may look at IBM 1 year from now, and then maybe the daily time frame is fine, because at that time there is plenty of institutional interest and they don't cancel their orders. Okay, so that's what I would do. So again, calibration is to calibrate the app to you, the trader, your trading style and risk appetite, where changing the time frames is to adapt to the market. When the market doesn't give you what you want, you can change the time frame to hopefully find an opportunity. Okay, and if not, then change stock. Okay, then that's it. But before you give up on a stock, you can always change time frame to see if you find what you want. Is there a minimum number of days that can be set up as time frames? I believe it's 1,440. I believe. Okay, because 1,440 that would be 1 day. Okay, so I believe that's the number. So let's try, because I forgot, to be honest. If I do 1441, that's more than a day. Well, it's taking it. So yeah, so I'm not fully sure. Okay, I'm not fully sure, but I can also see there is like a bad tick there. This candle got distorted. So yeah, so I would not recommend to go beyond 1440, which is 1 day. Okay. Yeah, in any case, if that's very important to you, Mark, I would suggest that you send me an email, so I will go back to take a look at the documentation of the platform, because there are so many features that one I forgot, but I would think 1440 is the number. Anyway, cool. So let's continue. So we talked about floating and docking, and now let's talk about grouping windows. Okay, so grouping windows, which is especially useful when it comes to grouping with your charts. Okay, so in this case, okay, actually I'm going to close this chart if you don't mind. Okay, so in this case, you can see I have two charts on my screen, one chart on the left, one chart on the right, and notice how on the top it says group, and the color which is selected is blue. okay? Meaning that those two charts are grouped. And what happens with that is that now if I type a symbol, for example, Facebook, you will see, even though I type the symbol in one chart, both of them are changing to Facebook. Why? Because they are linked, they belong to the same group, and therefore they work in tandem. If you change something in one, well, actually not something, if you change the symbol in one, then it changes in both. Now, this not only applies to charts, to be honest, because here, for example, I have, for example, a matrix. Notice how the matrix is also grouped with a blue color. So if I click on that symbol, FITB, okay, notice how the charts in the background are Facebook in here and Facebook on the left. So if I click on FITB, notice how the charts in the background are also changing. Why? Because sorry, I was reading the chat box, because the group is blue color. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, today we are discussing charts and grouping charts, but you can actually apply that same concept to other windows. Could be the skew window, the risk, the matrix, any of the tools can be grouped and linked. Mark, maximum number of days. Well, you are talking about the settings under format and how many bars you load? You're talking about that, the amount of bars here, I guess, right? Yeah. And to be honest, you caught me there with that one too, because the response is different depending if you use top for TradeStation versus if you use top for QC, because the response is limited to different levels depending on the market data vendor. So I don't remember the number by heart, but just keep adding values there. Okay, it's you can go as far as whatever market data is available based on the market vendor. Okay, so just go for it. You can load that many. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue talking about the grouping. Okay, so with the grouping, look, when I load a chart from scratch, by default it's not linked to anything. Okay, you see gray color there, but that gray color actually means not grouped. Okay, so it's not grouped. So you can go ahead and select group 1, for example, and now notice that if I get another chart, which also comes as gray, meaning not grouped, so notice that if I'm going to move it down so you guys see both. So if I select yellow on that one too, so now they are connected. So if I change that to Apple, okay, notice how the two yellow charts change to Apple. So you can see Apple here and you can see Apple here. Those are my yellow charts, okay, where the blue charts in the background are still pointing at FITB, which is the symbol I got before. Notice that I changed to Apple, but the charts below, they didn't react to it. Why? Because their grouping is blue color grouping, right? Which is group 3, which is not group 1, and therefore nothing's going on with those, okay? I guess that's pretty obvious and pretty self-explanatory. So the one that may be confusing, and to be honest, is very useful, it's the one called all groups, okay? So what does that mean? Well, all groups mean that if I select that white color, all groups, okay, that means that that chart is going to react to whatever happens anywhere else. So for example, if I look at my chart on the background, which is blue, and I type, this is FITB, if I type McDonald's, so notice how my chart here on the front changed to McDonald's, okay? Why? Because it was selected as all groups. So even though the one in the background is blue and the one in the front it's white, it reacted to the change I applied on the blue because it's linked to all groups, or another way to say that is no matter which group. Now notice the group 1, which is the yellow here, okay? Remember that we left it as Apple and it's still Apple, okay? So now what if I change the Apple chart to, I don't know, Walmart? Okay, so if I change the yellow chart to Walmart, now guess what? The front chart, which is the one that was grouped as all group, white color, it also changed to Walmart, meaning that no matter what is it that you do, that chart will always react, okay? So that's something for you to know, and sometimes that's useful. In some configuration. You may have multiple charts on the screen, and you want some to never change. You want some to only change, if you click here or there, and you want maybe that one chart to change all the time. No matter what you do, you want that chart to update. Okay, so that may be your solution for you to group using that all group functionality. Okay, and talking about grouping, and I'll need to explain format properly. Okay, but if I right click and I select format, there is also here an important check mark, which is link only underlying symbols. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, well, by default is not check mark. So take a look at this. Let's say I open an option chain and I right click and I copy the symbol of that option. Okay, option symbols are chartable, right? So if I copy the symbol of that option and I go back to my yellow chart, okay, and I paste, okay, right click, oh, I'm not sure why I cannot paste now. Now I'm not sure what I was doing. Paste, okay. So if I paste and I hit enter, okay, so now I am just loading, that symbol, okay. Walmart, blah 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 blah. That's the 150 call that expires in November 19. So that's an options contract. Now notice what just happened on the chart that reacts to all grouping. Okay, well, it also changed. Not a surprise. This is the same thing I just demonstrated a minute ago, right? But now you may be like, oh, wait a minute, that's not useful to me, because what I want to do is I want to compare what happened, to my options contracts compared to what happens to the underlying symbol. Okay, so I want it to be grouped, meaning that if I change the options contract, it changes the chart too, but only to show the underlying, not the options contract. So how can you do that? Okay, maybe this is better understood if I do it again. So for example, if I switch to Apple, just to start fresh with Apple on the yellow chart, and of course also now as well on the white chart. Okay, and now on the white chart, I right click format, and when I get to the format window, I actually checkmark link only underlying, meaning don't link options symbols. So if I do that, okay, and I go back to the yellow chart, and I go back to right click, paste the Walmart option symbol, okay, so notice how I got the Walmart option symbol on the chart, and now when I look at the one that was linked all white, it did change. It's not Apple anymore, but it changed to Walmart. Walmart, the underlying asset class, Walmart, Mr. Stock. It didn't change to Walmart, the 150 call, which is what we have on the yellow chart. Okay, this one only reacted to the underlying, not to the option symbol. Why? Because we have check mark under format, that very specific, very useful option that at time will save you plenty of time, especially if you are doing this, which is, again, comparing the performance of an options contract or an option spread versus an underlying. And maybe you have, remember, you can save those options contracts on a quote window or a position window, isn't it? So maybe you have a quote window, and here, let me paste. So you have your options contract here, okay? And maybe you are looking at, what is the bid price, what is the bid size, what is the ask, whatever. You're doing something in a quote window, okay? And now when you let me go back to Apple, okay? So then my chart is Apple, the other chart is Apple, okay? But now when I go to the quote window, so the moment I click, wait a minute, I need to make this yellow, right? I'm gonna group the quote window. So the moment I clicked or I linked the quote window with yellow, notice how the yellow chart became the options contract, but notice how the white chart, again, one more time, became the underlying. Why? Because I had that option selected. So again, those are options that are very useful. At the same time, this may be a bit confusing when you see it the first time, but when you practice it for a little bit and you understand how it works, it becomes it's one of those features that you're gonna love, because it saves you so much time when you want to go through, let's say you have a bunch of trades running and you just want to go and see what's happening, and you just click and it refreshes both the chart of the options as well as the chart of the underlying, and just visually you can just evaluate whatever is it that you do in your trading plan or your trade management. Okay, cool. So this is my comments when it comes to grouping. Okay, guys, how is it going? Let me know how everything is going. Mark, it looks like 30 days about maximum, and it's just a monthly time frame. Well, if you change to 30 monthly time frame, 30 is 30 months. It's not 30 days, correct? Oh, got you. Okay, so I guess I misunderstood you, Mark, twice in a row. I apologize for that. So you meant that just like I show you, you can do a 10-day chart, right? So your question was, how far can you go? And you find out that 30 days is the maximum you can go, because 30 days now becomes monthly. Yes, you are right. You're absolutely right. And I thought you were I misunderstood you. Sorry, my bad. Anyway, let's continue. So now within the chart, we got a collection of drawing tools. Okay, drawing tools. Okay, so let's talk about the drawing tools. Okay, now before we do that, I would like to get from you guys, because we got 15 minutes left in the session, and for sure I can talk about the drawing tool during these 15 minutes, but then the session will be over. So I would like to get from you guys, if you have any question about your everyday use of the platform. You guys send emails in a regular basis asking questions and so on, and this is a great place to ask those questions, because I could answer in a way that is way richer compared to when our team responds in an email. If you have questions about the use of the platform, no matter what your questions are, this is a great moment for you to ask. So instead of getting into drawing tools, I can go ahead and take care of your questions, okay? And we'll restart next day with the drawing tools. So please let me know if there is any question, and if there is none, please go ahead and type none, so I know. So then I begin with the drawing tools. And I'll take a sip of water as I'm waiting for your answer, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so it seems that I would say there are no questions. Cool. Okay, so let's continue then. So let's talk about drawing tools. Okay, well, the drawing tools, you can always right click, and you have certain options here, especially when it comes to removing drawing. Okay, so we'll talk about that. You also have on the chart multiple buttons. If you have the toolbar here activated, which are drawing functionalities, and you also have those functionalities available on the main toolbar, which of course they only work if you are on a chart. If you are trying to do some drawing, in other tools, in the strategy builder, for example, so of course it's not going to draw anything, because the strategy builder is not designed to draw on it. Okay, it's the charts. So anyway, so if that's okay, because of proximity, I'm just going to focus on those buttons, which are the drawing tools. Okay, again, same ones are there, but for proximity, I'm going to focus on the ones that are here. So let's first focus on these three guys. Okay, this one, followed by this one, and followed by this one. Okay, well, I guess the icon kind of says it all. Okay, the first on the top basically is designed to draw segments. So you have a starting point and an ending point. This is what these little dots kind of like represent. Then you have this one here, which this one is more like a ray, meaning that it starts from one side, continues, and then continues even further. It's kind of like that. And it could be in an angle, or it could be straight. And finally, so you have like the segments, you have like the rays, and then you have like the full lines going all the way to the left to all the way to the right. Classical support resistance line type of. If you do it horizontally, it could also be in an angle. Okay, so now how do you work on those tools? Well, it's to be honest, it's all the same. So if I use this tool, like the tool that draws segments. So you put it on the chart, you click whatever you want. After you click, you move, and when you're done, you click again, and that's it. That's your line. Okay. And by the way, notice that my cursor stayed with that little pencil. Okay. So if I hit escape on the keyboard, right, or I hit, I click, I right click on my mouse. Okay. Notice that I'm back to my cursor, which is an arrow. But if I click on it, right, now I have a pencil, meaning that I click number one, move, click number two, now I have a segment. But remember, I stayed in drawing mode. Okay. Meaning that if you don't want to draw anymore, you have to right click. So some of you may like that because it makes you very fast. Maybe you are highlighting stuff and you're doing this and this and this, and it makes you very fast. Some of you may not like it because in your approach to trading, you draw one segment and that's it. So there is an option here when you go to the file menu under settings, where for drawing tools you can check mark single use or not. And if you check mark single use, okay, and I click OK, so notice that now every time I draw a segment, okay, after I'm done, so click number one, click number two, 1, 2, 3. So notice that the moment I did click number two, I'm back to have a cursor. I am not in drawing mode anymore. So if I want to draw, I need to come back and click again so I can draw my other segment. Okay. So again, this is personal preference. Some of you may prefer to, have a single use of the drawing tools or continuous use of the drawing tools until you right click and then you are not in drawing mode again. Okay. Anymore, I meant to say. Now I got a bunch of segments here. So if I right click and I go to remove lines for current symbol or for all symbols. So if I do for current symbol, McDonald's is gonna now experience all the lines to be deleted. Okay, but the other symbols, okay, the other charts that you have analyzed and maybe drawn on, will still have their lines in place. Okay, you can also, by the way, if I draw another segment, you can also, by the way, click on it in the future, click and drag, and then release it somewhere else. Okay, if you click on the extremes, you have those little squares, which allows you to reposition the object. Okay, and of course, if you click on it and you hit delete on your keyboard, so 1, 2, 3, delete, then the object is gone. So again, that's something that you can do too. And talking about the keyboard, there is a very important key that you need to know the existence of it when you draw lines on the chart, which is the control key. So if I take the segment and without the control key, I click here. And now let's say I move like that and I'm like, oh, you know what? I want a straight line. So now come in here and make a straight line, maybe somehow difficult. Okay. Or even if you want to do it vertical, maybe you're like, it's kind of vertical, but I'm having a trouble there to make it truly vertical. Okay. So what can you do? You hold the control key on the keyboard. Notice that I'm in an angle. Okay. So even though I'm in an angle, if I hold the control key, automatically that line became horizontal. No matter where my mouse is horizontal. Unless I go truly under, and now it becomes perfectly vertical. And that's because I'm holding the control key, and therefore my lines go from perfectly horizontal to perfectly vertical, depending on your choice. Okay. If I release the control key, then you have an angle. Okay. So if I want to draw my very perfect horizontal segment, hold the control key, and whatever you want it to be, you click again, and that's your perfect segment. Okay. Now, the same thing that we learned with segments applies to ray. So if I select a ray and I click and then I move, right? So it's just gonna give me that perfect line. But notice that even though my little squares, which is where I clicked, are here and here, okay? Notice how the line continued to the right all the way. That's why it's called a ray instead of a segment. The segment has a beginning part and an ending part, okay? And when it ends, it's over. But the ray continues, okay? And of course, you can draw it in an angle too, okay? And then the extended line, okay? So, well, I guess you're guessing it. So if I do the same, click here, now it's giving me a horizontal line that goes all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Even if I scroll, the line continues. So it goes all the way to the left and all the way to the right, okay? If I move to the right, The line continues. Okay. So yeah, so that's how you use the drawing tools, the basic ones. Again, remember the control key. It's quite important. But there is a few more things that I would like to discuss. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete all those shapes. Okay, because let's start with segment again. So let's say I draw a segment, whatever. Okay, and I'm done with the segment. So now again, as I said, I can click, I can drag it. So let's say I want it here, but now I'm like, oh, you know what? I like it to be blue. So something you could do is you could double click on it, and a menu will appear, or you can click. So now it's selected. The one is selected. You know it is selected because you can see the little squares in the extremes. So you know it's selected. And once it's selected, you can right click and then select line study properties. Okay. And when you do that, it brings the same menu that you had if you did double click. It's the same thing. Okay. So what can you do in this case? Well, you can change colors. Okay. You can change the thickness. Okay. But also notice how instead of using a single color, you can say, wait a minute, when it's going down, I want it to be red. When it's going up, I want it to be green. Okay. I want it to be thicker. Okay. And I want it to draw an arrow. Okay. So if I click OK, so now because the angle is up, is green, and there is an arrow, if I was to move it down, the moment I move it down is red. Okay. So that's a little neat functionality that could be useful to you. And by the way, let's say you tell me, oh, that's how I love my segments. That's how I want it starting from now on. So instead of every time you draw a segment and then you need to go and change, what you could do is you could right click where the button is. And when you right click on the button and you change the setting, right? So for example, if I make this to be 10, so it's way thicker. Okay. So now the next time I draw a segment, that's my default. So it's going to be a thicker segment. It's 10 instead of 5. If I want it thinner, if I do another one, it's going to be 10. It's my default. It's 10. If I close top, open top, it's going to be 10 because I made it default by right-clicking on the button. If I right-click again, and now I go back to 5 or I make it 1, whatever it is, so that's going to be my new default. Okay. What else? You have a horizontal and vertical lock, meaning that if the only thing you do with the segments is horizontal and vertical lines, so then no need to hold the control key on the keyboard. Just lock it. And now every time you draw a segment, even if I go on an angle, okay, it's going to be horizontal or vertical. Without using the control key, is locked to be either horizontal or vertical. Okay. And again, if I do that on the button, I right click on the button, remember, that's my default. And also, as we saw before, you can draw an arrow, you have a line style, solid. Yeah, so I guess all of this is self-explanatory, and that's how you do it. And now that you have understood this for segments, the same happened for ray. If I right-click on the button, so you can see my settings, it's locked to be vertical or horizontal. Thickness is 5. Use a single color is purple. Again, this is user preference. You can make this whatever you want. And same thing for the extended line, which I have it as 3 for thickness, purple, single color, and locked for horizontal and vertical. So again, doesn't need to be like that, but that's my preference. That's how I have it. And that's how you set your defaults, knowing that no matter if that's your default or not, you can always go back to an object. It could be a segment, it could be an array, it could be an extended line. Whatever the object is, you can always double click on it. It will bring the menu for that object, not for the defaults. You can change the colors to blue, okay, the thickness to whatever else you want, and then when you click OK, here we go. That's your new way on how the object displays, thanks to changing those particular parameters. Anyway, so there are more drawing tools, okay, like the rectangles, squares, and then most importantly, tools for analytics such as regression lines, Fibonacci's, things like that. So we'll discuss that in future sessions, okay? Before we go, I just wanted to get a last piece of feedback from you guys. How is it going? How is it going? How did it go? Any question before we go? Thank you for that, Mark. Thank you for that, Mark. To be honest, we will add some functionality to the lines, some additional functionality, for example, alerts and more. But so far, this is the functionality available, and this is how to use it. Very good. So it seems that everybody is good. Everybody is okay. So hey, my friends, as always, thank you so much for joining me on the Sunday. It's always again special time when we meet during the weekdays during market hours. That's of course very cool. But also of course very special time, and especially appreciated being on the Sunday. Normally family time and so on, and you guys are spending time with me, learning how to use the platform. So super thank yous, and I will see you in the next one, my friends. You guys take care, and anything that you need, feel free to, as you know, send an email. Of course, you may remember, and you should remember what I said in prior sessions, to use tradewithufos.com/Jose, or tradewithufos.com/Becky, or tradewithufos.com/Reynaldo, you name it. And then you will come to the page, which is loading slow for whatever reason today, where then you can log in and you can get access to all those questions and so on. So super appreciated if instead of sending an email, you post the questions here. That would be, even though if you prefer to use an email, of course, not a problem. We're here to help you guys. But definitely a very good place for you to go to post your questions. So it serves you and it serves the community. So that's double appreciated, guys. You guys take care. As I said, enjoy the rest of the weekend. See you next week on the Wednesday on the live session, and keep up the good work. Bye bye, everybody. Take care.